All right, welcome to our Thursday, August 3rd, 2023 Roanoke County School Board work session. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Here. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Linden, would you read us into closed session, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Roanoke County School Board convene in closed session for the following: to discuss ongoing personnel matters under investigation pursuant to the personnel exemption at 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, and to discuss the investigation of a student matter pursuant to the scholastic record exemption at 2.2-3711A2 of the Code of Virginia, and for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members pertaining to actual or probable litigation, and consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring the provisions of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Closed session.
We'll call our meeting back to order. Mr. Linden, will you read us out of close, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Roanoke County School Board come out of closed session for the following: to discuss ongoing personnel matters under investigation pursuant to the personnel exemption at 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, and to discuss the investigation of a student matter pursuant to the scholastic record exemption at 2.2-3711A2 of the Code of Virginia, and for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members pertaining to actual or probable litigation, and consultation with legal counsel regarding the specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia. And I also move to certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened, were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the school board.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. 2.03, action from closed session.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I move to accept students for the 2023-2024 school year, numbers 1 through 8, for religious exemption from Roanoke County Schools.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. No other action from closed. We'll move on to item 3.01, approval of personnel changes in the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Huss, if I may, Mr. Chairman, just a personnel change. I found out today that as of today, we actually only have one teacher opening to start the school year right now, and that's just because we actually added a teacher position in a kindergarten at one of the schools where we had more kindergartners registered than expected. So that's just phenomenal to only have the one opening that was just created. We have on the nutrition associate front, we're going to hear the presentation from Ms. Estrada, but we're nearly fully staffed on the nutrition associates. That hasn't happened in years.
Great.
Bus drivers, and again, I'm knocking on wood here because everything could change in 2 weeks, but as of today, we have 4 bus driver openings, which is way lower than normal, and we have 5 currently in training. So that hadn't been that case for years and years, and so it's a good report and to be aware of, in terms of where we stand opening schools, so.
I thought you was gonna give credit to Jim Bradshaw.
Absolutely. All due to Mr. Bradshaw's efforts.
Well, there's been a lot of effort on both sides. I mean, we've talked
It
about
has.
benefits and pay and
Right.
really brainstormed and had the staff come up with ideas, and this is a testament to hard work, dedication. And I
the way
believe
it
Mr.
works if
Greenway
you-
has something he would like to say before we get
Yeah,
going.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to deviate from the meeting, but I do want to say I wasn't able to make it to the convocation this morning, and understand it went phenomenally well, and everyone had a good time. Sorry I was out of town, came back in for the work session, but I do want to say, because I know people will listen to this at some point, some folks, and I do want to just get the message out, and I'm sure y'all did this already, but we are fortunate that we have the staff we have. We're fortunate that we have the staff that's came back, that, as you just alluded to, we're fully staffed essentially. Nutrition workers, I can't remember the last time since I've been on the board that this was the case, and the bus drivers, we are fortunate in Roanoke County, amidst all the noise, we are fortunate in Roanoke County that we have the staff that we have, second to none. Sometimes you think the grass is greener on the other side, and we're fortunate those folks are coming back, and we're happy to have them. We thank you for all you do. I say this to everybody, and I'm going to go around to our schools in Vinton District and reiterate this, but we are indebted to each teacher, each staff worker, each IA, nutrition worker, bus drivers. I'm leaving somebody out, maintenance, everyone that make this school system go. We are lucky to live in Roanoke County. We are lucky to have the folks that educate our children in Roanoke County. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Ma'am.
Sorry. Dr. Nicely, we had talked in the past about retention rates, and you made some comments at the end of our last meeting about how excellent they actually are. Would you be able to make a presentation for our next work session about where we stack with other counties in terms of our retention rates? Because I know they're excellent, and I think the public should be aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just very quickly, we shared with our all of our faculty this morning in the convocation that you know, our retention rate you know, is 91% going into this year. That's we had a slightly lower retention rate going into last year, but that 91% mark is where we've held steady for several years now. You know, despite all those challenges, despite the pipeline for folks going into teaching, you know, really going down, we have 108 new teachers that we met with and for training earlier this week. And you'll find this phenomenal. That's what I shared with the folks this morning, that out of the 108 new folks we have coming in who are new to Roanoke County, and again, that puts us right at, for teachers, that 91% retention rate. About 25 of those were brand new teachers. Okay, we're excited to have those, to get them trained up, and you know, the enthusiasm and excitement they bring. But out of the remaining teachers, when they introduced themselves Monday, I was just floored about the number of years of experience that folks were coming in with, because we asked them to share that. And so we actually added that up after the fact, and it's over 900 and some years of experience that the other folks are bringing in. You know, these are new hires to Roanoke County they're bringing to the table. So again, very fortunate that folks are, you know, wanting to be in Roanoke County. They're staying in Roanoke County, and the ones who are coming in with experience that'll really, you know, help our students. And so we're pleased with that.
Excellent.
That's excellent. Thank you.
All right, 4.01, recommendation for textbook resources for radiologic technology program, Mr. Brian Weeks.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome.
Members of the board, Dr. Nicely and staff. The textbook committee, which was mostly organized by Mark Jones, has met, and they've come up with recommendations, just 3 different textbooks as listed in the agenda item. And they are going to be purchased by money provided by the Claude Moore Scholars, which if there's future purchases, I guess we'll address that at that time. But it's pretty cut and dried, so if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next item.
No questions?
I do have one, and I don't know if this is the proper time. With the age of technology, how does that affect what you're doing for us now? Does that, and I'm not sure I'm asking it the
We
way.
gotta have a textbook.
Yeah.
Even
well,
though we got to,
Yep, so, you know, the reduction of textbooks, is that affecting the
Well-
way you do your job, or?
Yeah, absolutely. We're still, in a lot of cases, buying classroom sets for a whole lot of the courses. And then we'll have the online components that we purchase for, you know, 6 or 7 years. We try to do 7 years. And then, you know, trying to keep those up and running is a challenge that, you know, my predecessor didn't face quite as much because it was just kind of taking off at that time. But it's a little challenging at times because there's a lot of moving pieces when things don't work. But
Well, that's what I guess I'm wondering
and
about
and
the
there's still an
technology.
occasional textbook that doesn't have an online component, but it's pretty rare.
Okay.
To your point, the work has shifted.
Right. I mean, it's
from 20 years
still
ago
there.
to now.
It's
I mean,
just
20
a-
years ago, you would see like a gym full of physical textbooks and a lot of physical manpower moving them around and all that kind of stuff. There's still some of that, but not nearly. A lot of that management has shifted toward managing subscriptions and making sure people have access and all of those things, you know, working with our IT department. So
Sure.
it's definitely shifted over the
Okay.
years.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Item 4.02, nutrition services topics, Ms. Jamie Estrada.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board and Dr. Nicely. Thank you for having me today. I wanted to talk to you about our nutrition services department and some of the topics that you've asked to bring back and some that I wanted to share with you today. So today we're going to talk about our program just a little bit to help you with an understanding of how we operate, our food allergy meal accommodation procedures, food waste, and also student meal debt. So about our program, we are an enterprise program that earns our funding by serving our meals. We do not have any money allocated to us by any government agency at the beginning of the year. We have to serve the meals and earn that money. USDA federal reimbursements comprise over half of what we budget for revenue next year. And I anticipate that with the addition of more schools in the CEP, community eligibility provision, we'll actually see our federal funding go up to about 2/3 of it coming from a federal source. So all meals served to students that are enrolled in Roanoke County schools are subsidized by federal funding, whether they receive free reduced meals or paid meals. We receive that reimbursement about a month after the meal's served, after we file a reimbursement claim. And we also receive an annual allocation of commodity food allowance funding that we spend on domestic farm products. So that's milk, eggs, and fresh produce that's grown here in the United States that we're serving to our students. Our allotment for the commodity food allocation last school year was about $471,000. In order to qualify for the federal funding, our meals have to contain the different nutritional standard components that you see there on the My Plate representation. So there's whole grains, proteins, vegetables, fruit, and milk. Those all need to be offered to students daily. And also to give you just a few facts about the program, last year we served almost 1.7 million meals total for the school year. And that comes out to about 10,000 meals a day that we're serving to our students. So moving into our meal accommodations, I know there was a concern that was brought up at a board meeting, and I wanted to go into a little bit more detail with you on how we handle special needs for our students that have concerns with allergies or disability issues. For allergens, most of our allergens can be handled through avoidance of the allergen. This does not require any doctor certification. Our process begins at the start of the year where our nutrition manager meets with the school nurse, and the school nurse provides a listing of all the allergens that the parents documented on the ANVR program. From there, our nutrition manager documents that in the software. So that way, every time a student comes through the meal service line, a pop-up message comes up for those students, and we ensure that we do not serve anything with the allergen to them. So parents can also keep track of the FDA-regulated top 9 allergens by looking at our menus on the Link Connect portal. They can see all of our food products that we serve and the different allergens that are in them. If a student requires a meal substitution or a modification to the daily menu, that's when we would get more involved with the process. We ask the parent to provide us with a medical statement from a licensed physician, physician's assistant, or a nurse practitioner, and our program manager works with the families to develop a menu that's acceptable to the students. At that point, the program manager also goes out to the school site and does training with the staff to make sure that they understand the specific needs of that meal. That's especially important in where there may be cross-contamination. That statement will remain in place and will continue with that meal plan until a licensed medical authority provides a letter revoking it at some point. Are there any questions about the meal accommodations portion? No?
Well, maybe this is well. So, and forgive me for forgetting the name of the lady that came from Herman L. Horn that was concerned about the diabetic, I believe it was the diabetic or A1.
Yes.
From her comments to where we're at now, have we made different accommodations, or is it about the same, or what are the accommodations?
I did go out and speak to all the nurses today at their back to school in-service to make sure they understood how to use our software so they have better access. And I also, just to introduce myself as well, since it's my first year, I spoke to them about our meal accommodation procedure. So in the instance that the nurse was speaking of providing a low-carb meal on a daily basis, We wouldn't necessarily be able to do that with the meal pattern as it stands because there is a focus on whole grains and a lot of items that just naturally contain carbohydrates. But what we can do is if a family provides a letter from a medical professional, we can accommodate them with a menu that's specific to that student. So for example, if the medical professional said that a carb count should be limited to a certain number, we could devise a menu that would meet that
That
number
that
of
child
carbs.
could get that
Yes.
would be
Yes.
specific to
So it's a
them.
case-by-case basis situation for those type of things. We cannot, we're unable to necessarily offer something that's low carb on a daily basis on the regular menu and still meet the meal plan requirements.
Right, but they can get that.
Absolutely,
That's
yes.
the- that's the
They also reached out specifically to that nurse
Yes.
with the training needed to make sure she understood that.
And if I may add, Mr. Chairman, because as a mom of 3 type 1 diabetics, diabetics can eat carbs, you know.
Right, right.
You just have to dose for them. They can eat anything. Sugar didn't cause diabetes, at least
Right.
type 1. But the most important thing is to know the carb counts.
Yes.
And in my experience, all of our nutritional staff have been fantastic when it comes to the carb counts. It's actually provided, and you can ask for it if you want it.
Yes, so we're more than welcome to accommodate students. Some students choose to accommodate their diabetes by eating and then dosing, as you said. And so that would be a matter of the parents and the medical professionals working together to come up with that right choice for the families.
Do you remember her name?
I can tell you offline.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to
I
just,
might have it on here. I wrote everything down.
what's that?
I'll see if I can find it here.
All right.
Do we have 2% or hold up?
We serve a 1% plain milk, and then we
1%.
serve 2 non-fat options as well, chocolate and strawberry.
Okay, and the carb count in the 1% is a lot lower.
Yes, there's no sugar or anything in those that would increase the carb count.
Increase, okay.
Yeah. But there is still carbs in milk, just naturally
Yeah.
from lactose. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But it's a lot less.
Yes, sir. Okay, moving on to food waste. So there's 2 potential areas for food waste in our operation. In the back of the house, there would be excess food in the kitchen production. We try to limit this as much as possible by doing what's called batch cooking, where we prepare a number of small batches and do not cook it until we get closer to the lunch service. Also, good quality items are served the next day or reutilized in another recipe if possible. I think the area of concern would be student waste, where students are taking foods that they may not eat and that food gets thrown in the garbage. So the USDA has a procedure that we follow, which is called offer versus serve. And this is where students get to make choices about their meals to limit the waste that's out there. We don't necessarily serve them a tray of food that has every meal component on it. The students are coming through the line and making choices along the way. So our example here is for breakfast. At breakfast, students may choose an entree, 1 or 2 fruit choices, and a milk option. I put up here a menu for August 16th, so you could see the different choices that would be available. And a student could make a breakfast this day by taking an entree of a sausage biscuit and also a fruit juice, and they would be in compliance with a meal for the day. Looking at lunch, students may choose an entree, 1 or 2 vegetables, 1 or 2 fruit choices, and milk. And the minimum choice needs to come from 3 of the different food groups, but must include a fruit or vegetable choice in there. Milk is not a requirement here, but fruit or vegetable is a requirement. So looking at the menu here for August 25th, we have 4 different entree options, 3 different fruit options, 3 vegetable options, and milk. This is what the menu starts at, but the managers also have flexibility to add things as well out there. And then just to give you a few examples, here's an example of a complete meal that a student may choose in the line. They could take a slice of the barbecue chicken pizza and a peach cup, and they would have a complete meal that meets the USDA qualifications.
But they still have to grab a peach cup is fruit, sorry.
Yep.
My bad. Okay,
And the chicken pizza has protein and grains on it, so that would make the other 2.
okay.
Here's another example. The chicken corn dog nuggets are coated with a whole grain corn coating. So that would count as your protein and your grain. Under vegetable, we have baked potato wedges, and then a non-fat chocolate milk. This would be acceptable as well. And then the final example, at the high schools, we're going back to entree salads this year. And so if a student at a high school picked up a Southwest chicken salad in the entree portion, they're receiving about 4 cups of vegetables in there, as well as a serving of protein and a grain serving on it as well. So that would be a complete meal in and of itself without having to pick up anything else.
Nice.
And I think it's, I don't want to jump in on your parade. I think one of the things that we're seeing is when we hit COVID, we had to give them a full meal and they were packing and serving students in their classroom. So I think you saw a lot more waste then because we had to follow a certain process, but now that we're not in that we have to serve you at your classroom, the students have choices and there are a lot of choices out there for them now.
Okay.
So I want to give you an outlook for us as a department looking ahead, and this is what we feel will help prevent some of the waste out there. For staffing, as mentioned before, we are down to, today we have 4 open positions and 3 people in background process. So if all those come through as expected, we would have 1 opening, which is phenomenal. I've been here 9 years, I've never seen that. And that's based on the help of my staff in our office here. We've been jumping on every application that comes in, and Chuck helped us with some targeted marketing, and it's been a great summer for hiring. We also have, for the very first time, 3 field managers that are going to start the year with us. And since we don't have so many staff openings, those field managers get to use their time not subbing for someone, but actually doing the oversight process that we hired them to do. So with that, our staffing, I feel like we can cook more, present more, do more marketing, and do some of the things that have been left behind in the last few years. Looking at the supply chain, we're also seeing a lot of the processors coming back to the K-12 market space and being able to fulfill orders regularly, so we're not dealing with as many shortages. And I hope that we start to see new products so that the menu can have some more new exciting things on there. So I see this year as a time to thrive and not just survive like we have been, where we really get ahead and start doing some of the big projects that we'd like to do and improvements to the division.
It's great to be fully staffed.
It really is. We can think of all these great ideas, but if we don't have the people out there to execute them, nothing happens. So this is the first year where we can really say we can move forward and get things done. So priorities, menu planning, we're putting more choices out there because we feel that when students see a choice that they want to pick up, that's something they're going to eat and consume and not waste it and throw it out. Our planned menu includes 4 to 5 fruit and vegetable options daily, and we've definitely given the nutrition managers the flexibility to add more items or to utilize fresh fruits and produce to hit those choices that students want. For presentation, we're going to be returning to fewer prepackaged items and trying to present more visually appealing food to the students. And we'll also be using reusable trays at lunch again, so that students can easily see the menu items they're eating and hopefully only pick up items that appeal to them. This will also help cut down on waste and disposable goods going to landfills. Finally, with our field managers, we feel like we have oversight out in the field where we can help identify problems that we may have and be able to come back and offer training and some solutions to correct them. So I was asked to look into different options for doing food donation, and we reached out to the Virginia Department of Health and the Virginia Department of Ed, and the feedback we got was that any donation needs to go to a 501c3, and Department of Health also gave us some guidance on what the food needs to look like. It needs to be a prepackaged item. If a student's held it or touched it, it needs to be a prepackaged item or a piece of fruit that has an intact peel. We also reached out to 130 school divisions by email to ask what type of waste programs they have. I received 58 responses. 55 of those divisions do not have a waste diversion program. Franklin County sends produce and milk to nonprofits before holiday breaks. These are things that would otherwise expire over a holiday break. Henry County partners with local groups that have a refrigerator in their dining rooms, and those local groups take care of the refrigerator and transport the food regularly. Loudoun County has a district-wide recovery program. It's funded by grants, and they also have a dedicated staff member that coordinates volunteers, transportation, and other partnerships with nonprofits.
Is that a state grant?
No, those come from private organizations of No Kid Hungry.
Is that something we could look into? Would that we be a candidate for that?
I'm not sure. We would have to look into that.
Okay. What was the name of that program you called?
It was Loudoun County
No,
School.
no, no.
Oh,
No kid.
No Kid Hungry?
No kid hungry.
Yes. So for our considerations after reviewing what we could possibly do looking into the future, to be a good steward of taxpayer funds, we would need to make sure that any program would not lead students to intentionally pick up extra meal items that they have an intention of donating just for that sole intention. Because again, the taxpayer funds that come from USDA are intended to feed our students primarily. And secondly, additional refrigeration and storage would be needed. And we would need to partner with organizations that can provide transport in a temperature-controlled manner and on a regular basis.
And just to clarify, the refrigeration and storage is needed in the cafeteria area because once the food leaves our kitchen, it can't come back into our kitchen and we can't store it in our refrigerators.
Right.
So you would not be able to put a bin out to collect apples because apples may go bad?
Well, the consideration would be for any products that need refrigeration, such as
Okay,
milk.
so just
or-
for the refrigerated items. So you
Yes.
could donate unrefrigerated items that would qualify, or how would you say that, Susan? Refrigerated items that don't require refrigeration.
Yeah, that would just not require to be, like, and they could donate, someone would just have to provide a refrigerator, or like the general fund would have to purchase a refrigerator to put in the cafeteria for that purpose.
How many items are prepackaged that need refrigeration?
The produce that's prepackaged, such as like baby carrots and things like that, that does require refrigeration.
Does.
Our milk also
Okay.
would be an item. And we're hoping to get away from as many prepackaged items, so I don't have an exact number for you. Juice would be another item that does need to be kept under refrigeration. We're using 100% fruit juice,
Okay.
so.
Silly question, but the 501c3, can we take a write-off? Or is it too much trouble to keep up?
I don't think that's something we could take a right off
Public
of.
entity, or
Well, I know, but we're done.
could you do it?
I'm just wondering.
I don't know how we would.
Okay.
We don't pay taxes.
Okay.
You do better write off on your taxes? Yeah, since we don't pay taxes, I guess that would.
Well, I know, but I mean, was there a write-off somewhere where you could shrinkage, or maybe this is something that you did, you got rid of?
I would have to look into it. I don't think.
Well, that's all
that
right. I
there
mean,
would
I
be.
just thought maybe if it's, that we're getting rid of it,
Yeah.
it's a.
And I think our biggest concern would be, at the first bullet there, just, it's a great idea, and no one wants food waste, right? But our biggest concern would be is if an organization came in and really marketed this, and students got the idea of, oh, I don't have enough, I could get a couple more components to make a full menu. So, because you are flexible, you can get a couple extra components to make a meal. And our fear will be is if they start grabbing those extra carrots or the extra milk, they're not going to drink the milk for the sole purpose of putting it in that refrigerator the second they walk out of the line, then we're going to start facing additional costs of purchasing that food for that purpose. And so if we did go down a program, we would want to ensure that that program made sure we did not have extra costs.
So I would be curious, Loudoun County, which has a district-wide, which is a huge district recovery program, what do they do to prevent that from happening?
I spoke with their program coordinator, and I believe her full-time job is coordinating this program with a number of schools, they said, as you said. And so the pounds that she spoke of seemed a lot to me, up to 200 pounds a week being diverted out of some of the high schools. And that's where concern comes up, are the students picking up the food just for the sole purpose of donating it?
Right.
So,
Yeah, so maybe with education or just starting small, have some data points.
Right.
To see if we're actually increasing the number of pounds of whatever we're selling.
Right.
And that might be a good way to keep track on that. I would think so.
Yeah.
Have we analyzed the potential additional costs for refrigeration and storage? that extra that would
Yes.
be needed? And is there room in our cafeterias for that?
In the cafeteria space itself?
It has
Yeah.
to exit
Yes.
the cafeteria is what you said, right? Or it has to exit the kitchen.
Right, it can't be commingled with our food necessarily. Because this food has been technically served to a student. So it's the same as if you went to a restaurant, you wouldn't necessarily want somebody's leftovers back in the refrigerator with your food. Does that make sense?
And I think the other hurdle that she really found is the transportation of it, because we would have to have a group who would be willing to drive to 26 locations
Right?
to
So-
pick up all that food.
Exactly, yeah. So my thought was, wouldn't it be great if we reached out to just pilot a program to start, look at those data points, like the Boys and Girls Club, which is right around the corner in your district, Tim, they're a 501(c)(3).
My only thing there is I would have to know more about what their because it's an after-school program. I'm sure there's a snack, but I'm not sure what they would.
Well, would they even be willing to, are they even interested in food? Do they need it, and would they take it?
Yeah, that
Is
we
the
would have
question.
to ask, yeah.
Now, my contact there, I kind of broached to somebody, and they said, oh, yeah, that very possibly they would.
The girl
be
that was
interested.
there, she's no longer there.
They have a new,
Yeah, somebody new, Michelle.
I think based on everything they're seeing, I think you're exactly right. I think the starting point would be to reach out to various charities to see who would be interested, because it would really require them to, be willing to invest and have the manpower to, like you said, do the transportation. Probably would be asking them, hey, you all need to put in a refrigerator or whatever it takes to do that, versus them, we can't take on that cost. But I think that's the starting point, is reaching out to see would there be a need, and if it would be folks be willing to put those things in place, and if so, I think we could, look at some pilots.
well, is it something that they are interested in?
Right.
Is
That's
it
the
worth
starting
their
point.
while?
Yes.
Is it worth their while? My understanding was that during COVID, of course, there's a lot of waste. You're saying that it's gone down, which is great to hear. But, if you've got trash cans upon trash cans of fresh fruit, oranges, apples that are not wrapped up, they're not sliced peaches, and they're in peach cups because we're selling peaches in peach cups, I just don't think that there's any value in that as a taxpayer. We're not being good stewards of the money we've been given in that sense either. And in essence, we're really not teaching our children responsibility if they're continuing to just toss perfectly good food into a trash bin and it goes out. So, I would like to see us try to pilot a program, see if we can find an organization that can help us. If you want help with that, I've got connections at various organizations, and just see where we can take this. And we start small, and if it's too much work and it doesn't seem anyone's interested, at least we can say we tried.
Right. Well, from the survey of the different divisions, one thing we're definitely planning on doing this year is taking food that may expire over holiday breaks and making sure that gets to a different 501(c)(3). So, and we can look into different organizations for that as well, so it goes into a rotating manner.
The one that comes to mind for me is Salvation Army. I don't, because they use a lot of food.
Right.
Salvation Army, and Rescue Mission,
Yeah.
they do a lot. We used to donate to them a lot. They left over, they'd take anything.
Ram House.
Well,
Ram
We
House,
serve at the Ram House twice
Yeah.
a month.
Feeding
Yeah.
America,
So there are a lot of.
so there are a
organizations
bunch.
that
In
are
fact, if somebody knows, I guess.
online,
You
right?
got the public, now, if you know of an organization or group that would be interested, this is an opportunity that, if we can salvage some of that waste for a good cause and a good purpose, we're happy to do that.
We even have the Ronald McDonald House too,
Yeah,
with Carillion.
yeah.
That did serve a huge medical need for the
They
people
do.
who come into this community for medical
Yes.
necessities.
Is there any way, going back to some of the discussion, as they throw away good packaged food, is there a way that education-wise, are we able to say, or is someone there to educate them and say, hey, let's set this over and we'll give that to the 501(c)(3)? Or, they're not gonna say it to them, but, put it
Right.
over there, if you're not gonna put it on this table or something. I don't know.
That's kind of what you'd have to do if we could get this set up and had a partner who wanted to do
Yeah,
it. That's
and a
what you'd have to
partner that would
do.
do it, because that would reduce the waste, just throwing it away.
And taking that step, one step further, I honestly think that the education is with educating our students.
Exactly.
And educating our parents. They don't have to take everything. Like you saw in a high school, they need one salad. That's it. They don't have to take the milk if they don't like it. And I think a lot of our students are used to, you go by the milk bin, you grab a milk. Whether you like it or not, you grab one. They don't have to. And I think that's gonna be education, and I've talked to Ms. Estrada about that, and maybe having her staff come up. She has a great program manager who is really good with training materials. And they could probably come up with a good, quick, 30-second, 1-minute little training video. We can put on our website. We can push out in emails to our parents that could really help. I think that's where we need to kind of break down these preconceived ideas with our students and our families.
Like with a tag, take what you need,
Yeah.
something like that. But they are required by the state to take, okay, so at lunch, right, 3 items from different groups, which must include a fruit or vegetable. So I'm sorry, but not every kid's gonna eat a fruit or vegetable, and they're taking it. Even if you offer the best fruit and vegetable out there.
We do
maybe-
try to offer a variety of choices. We understand that not every child's going to eat it. And also, this is a time when the children are away from their parents who might make decisions for them when they dine out or in other ways. So this is a time they get to decide what they eat, and they may just decide to eat the hamburger. That is the requirement from USDA in order to receive that big chunk of federal dollars that we have.
Yeah. So you're putting it on their tray. A lot of them
We're
aren't
not-
necessarily,
yeah.
sorry.
We're asking them to
We're
choose,
asking them to
yes.
choose it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going on their tray. And then a lot of times it'd be interesting to, I don't think you'd ever get the data on it, but how many kids are actually consuming the vegetables on their tray, that get to the tray. I would guess probably less than 50%, I don't know, are eating the vegetables.
We try to always have things that most kids like. I know this isn't going to hit everybody, but there's almost baby carrots out every day. And there's always fresh apples, different cupped fruit that they like. And the reason for that is it's not that we don't want to rotate new and exciting things, but sometimes kids pick what they know, and that's what we do. So those are the reasons you see that daily, almost.
And if I'm not wrong, they serve juices that count,
Yeah.
that are really, really yummy.
Yeah,
Mango
see,
mango is the best.
I'd much rather my kid have an apple than a juice any day.
Well, we do put juice out several days a week and at the high school level, they can have it daily with the meal pattern. And sometimes that's how we do make most of our reimbursable meals at a high school, is the kids picking up a juice.
Picking up a
packet.
juice.
And I've been by schools when in nutrition at the end of the day, and just went in to say hello to some of the workers, and they're opening the package of salads and throwing them away. I mean, they're required to.
Yes, so everything we do, we are following health department. So a pre-made salad can only hold for so many days to ensure everyone's health, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're talking about, though, to Mike's point, not salad items, but pre-packaged things that people can't
Right.
really, yeah.
Expiration, nothing with expiration.
Right.
I think it's a great idea. I'd like to try it. I don't know if we have the support of the board to take it a little step further, but I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to do some more investigating and see what we can come up with.
Yeah,
Run a
okay.
pilot
I
program.
think we generally help the whole community. We can do it. Did we go up on price any?
For students, no. For adults, yes, because our subsidies are different this year, so we have to make up the difference with that. So our adult meal prices did go up.
And what's the adult now?
It's at $2.75 at breakfast and $4.75 at lunch,
Yeah.
because there is not that federal subsidy for an adult meal.
Still a bargain.
Still a bargain.
Oh, and we should probably, Susan, do you want to speak about the donation that we got, the $100,000?
Well, she's getting ready to talk
Do you have
about
that on
that,
it?
so
Oh,
she
sorry.
can-
I'm jumping the gun.
Y'all love doing that to us.
I know. Sound like Tim.
So for meal debt, we are tremendously appreciative of Mr. Chef's donation to us. And I wanted to communicate with the board about what we've done this year to extend outreach to families before school started, communicating the fact that there is a cost for meals and our policy for paying for them. So in the ANVR packet that families received in July, school nutrition had a letter that included pricing, a process for completing the application, information about making payments, and it also contained the entire unpaid meal charge policy. On our website, we have the same information. We also have the unpaid meal charge policy on the school nutrition page that's separate from board docs. On July 25th, we sent out an email text blast to all parents in non-CEP schools. It included information about a process for completing free and reduced applications, our pricing and payment, and it also stated that we have an expectation for payment if parents don't qualify for a free reduced program. We're going to repeat that email text process here just before school starts. At the site level, we have paper applications in all non-CEP schools, and I've also been keeping principals informed about pricing and different updates to our online payments throughout the summer. And I'm going to be working with Chuck Leinberger on a promotional campaign for social media and news media about the process as well. As far as debt collection efforts, once debt starts to accrue, the families of students that have a debt of $6 or more are receiving text messages weekly. It's sent to both of the parents or guardians that are on the students' accounts. There's also an email that goes out, also to both parents weekly. We do mailed letters once they reach a debt limit of $50 or more, and those go out monthly, and they are mailed to the address that's on file. And then we also do some outreach with the principal, the intent not being that the principals do collection efforts, but to help them identify families that may need some more one-on-one outreach at that level. So our limitation on collection efforts, these are the different codes of Virginia that are listed there, and this information comes directly out of them. We must make a breakfast and lunch available to any student regardless of money owed or ability to pay. No communication may be directed to the student. No third-party debt collectors or lawsuits may be used as a means of collection, and there can be no restriction on a student's activities. So these are the efforts that we have and the restrictions that are in place. I just wanted to bring those back around to the board because I know there was a question last week about that. Are there any questions for me otherwise?
Good presentation.
Thank you. Well, thank you. It was good speaking with you this afternoon. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank
Can
you.
we do a text blast through Chuck's thing about, don't forget to fill out your, was that on there? I didn't know if it was a text blast or
They did it
not.
at the end of July, they're gonna do it again before school starts next week, so yes.
Okay.
There was a text and email that was sent out to
No,
both
I saw
parents.
the email. I guess I missed the text, I guess. Okay.
They're gonna do it again before school starts, just to make
Yes.
sure everybody,
It's
you
on
know,
board.
right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and you mentioned earlier, Ms. Fashani, about the donation that we received.
Yes.
So we're still hoping when he's available to come in and recognize him, Mr. Schaaf, so we're really appreciative of that. We've also publicized that, through our newsletter communication, just so the community knows. I mean, it's a great example of generosity, right, by a citizen to step in and do that. I also want to say one more thing. She had, I know your nutrition manager's in the other day, and they were trying out some new chicken recipes. I volunteered to be a taste tester. It's good stuff. Yeah, doing a great job.
I thought we were going to get samples today. I don't know what happened.
It's good stuff they're serving. So.
And Mrs. Stroud, I've heard great things about all the work that you're doing, so I just want to personally thank you for all your hard work and your effort. It shows.
I have a really good team with me, so
Okay, wow.
thank you.
Thank you. And 4.03, revision to policy 6.16, final assessments and exemptions. Mr. Mike Riley.
I have a copy for everybody. I think Dr. Nicely emailed this out.
Thank you, sir.
And for Chuck, I'll wait to start talking until I get behind my microphone. He doesn't like it when I ramble up as I'm walking around.
He's tough, isn't he?
Of course, at the school board meeting last week, we did approve an edited version of this. This is a edited version of the new approved version that cleaned up basically what we've done in this, and I'll go through it just real quickly, is we've removed seniors from the need to meet all the additional criteria, or not seniors, we've moved students who have to take their SOL test at the end of the course from all the other criteria. So if you look, we've actually got two different categories. The first one are seniors. Seniors can qualify for exemption, but they have to meet the criteria. They have to have the grades and the attendance to be exempt from their examination. If you look now, there's a second section there on the second page where we state students enrolled in a course with a corresponding SOL test that the student must take for verified graduation credit or due to a federal requirement are exempt from final assessments for that course. It's a standalone, so those students would be exempt. Are there any questions about that?
No, but thank you for clearing that up, because I know there was some discussion, and we were all kind of caught in a moment. So
Yes.
then we kind of talked afterwards, like, okay, that language on that wasn't as clear as we needed it to be. So
Yes.
it's really clear now.
It is. So I think
you.
it's much clearer, it's much cleaner.
Yes.
So I think it's a good policy. If there aren't any questions, staff would recommend it goes on consent agenda for the school board meeting later this month.
I'm good with that.
Fine.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For clarification, Mr. Chairman, 4.01 going to go on consent as well? Those textbooks? I don't know that we mentioned that.
Should.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
4.04, project updates, Mr. Todd Kegels.
You know, Mr. Chairman, without Cheryl's comments, this would have been a quick work session, yeah.
In here or out?
Oh, wait, that too, yeah.
Tell you what. Throw me under the bus now. Monkey see, monkey do.
Good point.
I just have updates on some ongoing projects. And, you know, as I state every time, this isn't anywhere near all the projects we're working on. So if you have specific questions about projects, feel free to ask about anything that's not in here. Our elementary school renovations, we have hired a new PPEA consultant. We're now working with Skanska. We have held an initial meeting with them. The NESHAP reports, remember that's the asbestos investigation reports, have come back on both schools. They did find significant amounts of asbestos in both schools. So the next step in that process is to have the design work done for the abatement process. So we're working on that so that anybody submitting proposals could include that in their work to try to avoid the situation we have at William Byrd High where, you know, into the renovation, we're getting $1.5 million bill we didn't expect. So we are doing everything we can to avoid that in the future. The site surveys, the initial work has already been done. We actually have the drafts of those, and they're in the process of being finalized. We've also formed sort of a preliminary evaluation committee, and the suggested members of this committee is Dr. Nicely, Ms. Hogan, Mr. Riley, Mr. Sir, Mr. Kish, Ms. McCallum, Ms. Young, pretty much everybody from my office, which is myself, Harley Grimes, Brian Dodson, Michael Kaufman, and then Jeff Meacham from maintenance. And then we have a question mark there in case there were additional members that the board would request.
I've communicated with you all that this follows the same process like we did, for the William Byrd renovation. I do think, well, first of all, to be clear, in our PPEA guidelines, this is the next step, to form the committee who would evaluate the proposals. So in terms of the makeup, that's very similar. We'd like to get this in place so we don't, lose time, but because those proposals are due August 25th. My only thought would be, and certainly the pleasure of the board would be, given the scope of these projects, multiple fronts. You got a new school you're trying to build, two renovations, 2 or 3 school districts, magisterial districts even involved. Would you want to? Well, you could look at me and say, no, we don't want to do any of that. You could do something different, or you might consider, appointing, 2 members from the school board to participate as well. If you do that, I did clarify with legal counsel you would need to take action to appoint those people to the committee, since you'd be, authorizing individual members to act in that capacity. So I just throw out that for your discussion.
So for Cave Spring, I know Mike had played a role in helping with that. I know on Bird, I really didn't add much, and I'm sure Mike may not have either.
I was just over there every day.
But, yeah, well, you were there every day. I didn't make it every day, but I did keep up with the process and wanted to be apprised of, to make sure that we were getting what we intended and what we needed for that school. And I'm sure everybody else will too, but I don't know if it needs to be formalized, and I think, Brent, I think that would be nice for you to be, to make sure that's happening the way your community thinks they should do it. And so I don't know if we need to formally be a part of that committee, but anytime I'd like to come to that committee, I'd like to be able to do that and listen to comments and help or.
Right, and just to be clear, this committee, is the primary purpose is to get into that next phase where we're actually looking at proposals, making that recommendation, because remember, that decision tree next is going to be, look, do we want to move forward into the design phase with one or more of the proposals that we get? So that's the decision you have to make. That decision would ultimately come back to the board. But to your point, you could have potentially a couple of board members who were to kind of serve as an ex officio capacity to be part of that. If you wanted them to actually be, voting members of the committee, then you could do that, but I think you have to take action to appoint them.
Yeah, I don't know that I would care if we were voting. I just want us to have the opportunity to be able to, be present. And I don't care, all five of them, if we.
I wouldn't mind a vote, though, Tim.
What's
mean,
that?
I would think anytime you can serve on a committee and have a vote, that makes your stake in the committee that much more valuable. So I would be in favor of forming a committee and doing it the proper way through.
Okay.
If that's what the board comes to agree on, that would be my take on it, and actually voting on it and putting people in those positions to help be decision makers of money that we're allocating and having a real stake
Okay.
in what's taking place.
Yeah, I'm good with that too. I just didn't know if you wanted to go that far. But
Yeah,
I'm
and this
fine.
is gonna be a little bit different, though. I mean, those singular projects in the past have been in one district, where here, we can only have 2 board members, but we've got projects in 3 different districts. So it's gonna be difficult to just, I would think, select just 2. Now, if they're advisory members of that and not voting members, that may make a difference.
Because we
Oh,
can still change that at the board level if there was something we wanted to.
Could you have both?
I mean, I don't see any reason, but I'm just
Could you
saying,
do
if you ever
rotating?
wanted something, I'd just rather be there just to kind of keep up with what's going on. That's kind of the way.
Tim, do you think you could do both, advisory and voting? Is that an option?
Well, I think it's a decider, are they going to be on the committee or not? So, I'm not sure where you're going.
So I think Mr. Linder brought up a great point. There's 5 districts and there's 1 CTE, right? So you don't want to have, and you would hope that we're all in favor of benefiting the entire county, but sometimes things can not be, I don't know, I'm just guessing, but.
Are you saying you could have more than 2, some advisory and some voting? Is that what you're going?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you would have to, of course, if you have more than 2 members, even as part of that meeting, then you have to get into, the whole open meeting, considerations and so forth. At that point, I think you almost it's almost like we used to do with the construction committees here. All the board members served on it, even though it's staff, but in essence, it's school board meetings. So you get into that.
Yeah.
So just thinking about that piece of it.
Could you do it rotating?
2, but not 3.
Keep in mind, and again, you can decide however you want to. This specific purpose is not going to be like a long-standing committee, in perpetuity for all the. This committee's purpose is going to be to evaluate their proposals and make a recommendation to the board in terms of next steps. Just to
Not the
just
design.
to clarify that.
Are you evaluating design?
Yeah, I mean, those folks could also be involved in those later
Then I think that's where.
steps. This initial thing is just to form the committee to decide about their proposals and make a recommendation to the board on how to move forward. I mean, that's the specific purpose of that.
Well, who generally sits on these committees?
Well, the only time we've had the only time we've not done the competitive sealed bid, like the design bid build process, was the Bird renovation. So, prior to that, you put out an RFP, and under that process, it's the contractor who came in with the low bid, there was no decision to be made there, right? So with the Bird renovations, the first time we did design build, where you're looking for overall value of the project, the proposals that are coming in. And for that, it was, the principals, Mr. Kegels was on it as the middle school principal because you were across the parking lot there. And I know Ms. Newcomb wanted that and staff there as far as, making that determination. That's what we did before. I guess I'm bringing this forward in terms
So
of
you're
discussion.
proposing one committee for all three projects?
Well, right now, the only proposal that we have is for the bundled project, so that's what you're deciding
Yeah,
on.
I think that's where I have a little bit of an issue with it. I think to Cheryl's point, or to Mike's as well, maybe you need three committees. Or, I guess, sometimes we get into these committee things and then we don't really know the scope of what we're talking about. So I'm not sure I still understand. Is this committee just for the proposals we receive to approve, one to recommend to the board? They're not for designing or not for implementing?
Yeah, once we get, to a design phase and those kind of nitty-gritty decisions, then, that's not really a formal committee kind of thing. That's gonna be more of just folks coming to the table like you were describing to give the input and hear it. This particular committee is formally in place, just to help us with that next step of deciding, do we, accept the proposals we receive? Do we, that decision point is outlined in our PPA guidelines. So this is a little different than what we've done before because of that, because we've not been, specifically in a situation where we've had the unsolicited bid or proposal and so forth. If that makes sense.
I'm not sure it does, but
So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I might think it would be cleaner if all five of us got that information at the same time, rather than a couple people being
I'm good with that too.
on the committee and maybe trying to steer it personally. I mean, we've got
Well, I'm not looking to
professionals that
steer
are,
it, but I want to make sure that,
if you were a voting member, I mean, it could.
all right, then I want all five of us on there then, if that's what
No,
you're saying.
no, I'm not saying all
I know
five.
you're
I'm saying
not,
none of
but-
us
but I
on
think-
that, on this initial committee. I mean, we've hired professionals to do that job, and they are professionals, and then,
You had me until you went a little bit off the rail with the steering piece. It's not a steering, it's making sure.
it's
and
giving a
again,
recommendation.
Absolutely. Well, I want to make sure that we're getting what we're telling the taxpayers we're expecting, and for the dollars that we're expecting. So if that's a part of this process, absolutely, 200% think every one of us ought to be involved. But if it's just, we're going to recommend, all right, we got 4 proposals, we recommend the proposal A, then that's a whole different issue, and then we can take it up from there.
But if I may, what is interesting about this dynamic is you can be involved at one level or involved at a completely different level as a voting person.
That's what I don't
So that's
understand.
when it just gets a little bit difficult, doesn't it, Dr. Nicely? Because,
yeah, well, so just remember that, where we are right now is, we've received one unsolicited proposal, right, that you all took action to receive. Okay, and that initiates the next phase of opening the door. At this phase, it's out there for other, competing proposals to be submitted. When I say competing proposals, in response to the one we received, the one we received is for all 3 projects, right? Keep in mind that within that time period, somebody else could say, well, I'm not responding to that proposal. I want to just, do the CTE center. I want to do the 2 elementary renovations. They could submit a second unsolicited proposal, which we still follow our process. You would decide, yeah, we'll receive that too, and then we'll open the door to competition for that. So that's the phase we're in, right? And we allowed 60 days to receive those competing proposals. And so August 25th is when it comes due. So at that point, the decision that is going to have to be made is, and again, that's why you need a committee to then evaluate what you received. Okay, so let's assume that come August 25th, we'll keep it simple, that we have the original unsolicited proposal, and let's say there was another one submitted. Okay, we'd like to have more, but let's just say we have two. The decision is going to have to be, what do we move forward with? Because remember, this phase is the conceptual phase. This is not in the weeds details necessarily in terms of what they're submitting. You can decide, okay, we want to go forward into the detail phase with one or more of the ones you've gotten. So you could say, look, after this initial concept or the conceptual phase, and we had two, one was head and shoulders above the other. And so we're deciding, this one's much further along. We want to go with that. That's a decision you can make. You could decide, well, there's not, a huge advantage in terms of one over the other that you've received. And so therefore, we'd like to hear more from both. So you could say, well, we'd like to go on to the detail phase with both proposals and see what they come up with. And then you make the decision from there. So it's those steps that we're in terms of the process. So the evaluation committee is the one that's going to have to, get into the weeds, look at what's been submitted, and come back and say, yeah, we think that there's one that's head and shoulders above the other. Therefore, we recommend that you do this. You move forward with that one.
I guess the piece I don't understand out of this whole thing is, how do we do that and we don't have the design? What we do on BCAT, but the two elementaries have not been tweaked to the point of knowing where we're at yet.
Well, actually, for both schools, we've got the programming.
Branch and RRMM are probably way ahead of the process, and that's fine. But do we have the final drawings of what they proposed for Cundiff and for Cove?
Not the final drawings, but we have.
So how do we accept
We have
a
an
bid?
initial concept design from them.
And how do we know we're getting what we should get for the money they're telling us they can do it for? If we don't know, in the private sector, we would never do it this, and I get that we're not private and I gotta get over that. But I would know, I would have a drawing, this is what you're getting 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, a family room, a unfinished basement, 2-car garage, this is what you're getting. This is it, this is the plan, now price it. I don't even know what we're pricing.
Well, that is, I do think that level of detail that you just said is what we already have in the existing unsolicited proposal, and it's what we expect to receive in the solicited proposals as well.
One school's got 100 kids more than the other, so it's gotta be, we talked about, there's gotta be some tweaking a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and those are available for you to look at now. So.
The final plans?
Not final plans, but they're the concept phase. You don't have like the blueprints. I don't know when you say final plans.
I don't know how you, didn't we, and I've heard this in our bird project in this a little bit, even though it wasn't PPEA, that there were things that either weren't remembered in the project or weren't specified in the project that we're having to pay for, that, you would have just again, assume, and I don't want to assume.
And there's still, no matter what you do, there's still an opportunity in that process to get more into the weeds, to work out those details before you get to the phase where you get the guaranteed maximum price. You get to that phase of it.
So they're giving us a budget, and then we have to go back and get the actual finished product and what the price will be. Is that what you're saying?
I think so.
So they give us, and I don't have any clue. They give us $128 million. We've got this summary, and this pretty, because BCAT, we've really gotten into the weeds, pretty close to what we're gonna have. So now we go back and say, okay, we wanna work with you, give us the final drawings for Cove and Cundiff and the final pricing. Is that what you're saying?
I think in concept, that's kind of how it works. And so once you get to that, then you go into that phase of, okay, now we're going to work out the details and hammer out, okay, we want this here, we want, this piece of furniture here, and all those kinds of things that need to be,
So the
discussed.
bids-
That's how we did the Bird project.
So the bids come in, do they use the same RRMM drawings for the other contractors?
No,
They'd
they'll
have to use
produce
their
their
So
own
they make up their own
concepts.
renderings of these schools?
Right.
And submit a bid,
That's right.
A proposal.
a proposal. You can't imagine how I feel like this is a discombobulated, and again, I'm not because we've known this, it's just we don't do this all the time. But my gosh, they gotta love public entities that bring them jobs. Because, you get Branch over here that gives us their rendition of what they're gonna give us. You get contractor A over here that gives us their rendition of what they're bringing us. You get contractor B that says, oh no, this is the way we're gonna do it, and this is what we're giving. I mean, I have no idea what we're talking. It just blows my mind how this works in the public process. But I guess I have to get over that. The problem I have getting over that is that we've got taxpayer money that we're spending on these projects, and I'm not even, and I don't want to get everybody in an uproar over this, but I'm not even sure I know what we're getting exactly. We've got a concept, right? But we don't have it nailed down to know what our pricing is. And contractor A, B, and C are going to give us their concept. And am I making sense here? I mean, it just.
Well, I think it would be a good idea for you to come by and look at what we do have, what's included in the proposal, and see if that's not the level of detail that you're looking for at this phase.
Okay.
And they are compensating for the difference in number of students, correct?
There are some differences in what they plan to do to each
The extra
building
100 or
in
whatever
the
it may be.
one proposal that we have received to date.
And some of that's proprietary at this point in terms of what we can discuss publicly, but you all as board members have access to it to come in and look at.
Okay.
The proprietary piece.
But I think we need, if we get any other, you see what I'm saying? It's not that simple. It's not like contractor A, B, C, and D are bidding on the same project. They're bidding on the same idea, but it may be a whole different idea of what we're getting. One might put in terrazzo floors, and one may put in carpet, and one may put in vinyl plank, and again, one may put in hard, whatever. And that's a very minute detail in the scheme of the whole thing, but you don't know what you're getting.
Well, you do have that level of detail. That your example of flooring is a good one, actually, because you do have that level of detail in the detail phase.
In the one.
And that's what the committee would do, is look at all of that, make a recommendation and say, look, we're looking at the overall value, we're looking at what they're proposing in terms of the kind of flooring, all of those kinds of things, and then coming back with a recommendation to say, this one is going to give us the best value, right, to the taxpayers and also meet the needs of the schools. And then, but it doesn't mean they're done, okay, we're just like, okay, writing somebody a blank check and say, okay, you guys just kind of go out at that point and do what you want. It's just like we've done with the Bird project, lots of input, so let's work out the details and so forth to make sure that before they give us that guaranteed maximum price, that, all of those things have been included.
So if I may, so what I'm hearing is that, as you said before, if you have one that looks, exceedingly better than another, you can go to both of those two proposers and say, can you go to the next step and give me some more details? That would be where Mr. Greenway is looking for, those details. Is it plank wood? Is it vinyl? Yeah, I don't know. You build houses more than I do. I don't know. But, so you could ask for that before you make your decision, right?
And based on our conversations with our consultant, when you get to that point, if you're not happy with what they've produced in the detailed phase, you don't have to proceed. Even at that point,
Right.
we can reject that and say, no, we're gonna go back to the beginning and start over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which we know we don't want to do that, so.
Right.
Anyway,
I sense your frustration, I understand, because I would be
Yeah.
frustrated too. But I think we do need to look further what Mr. Giggles has, and maybe we could sit down and have a meeting. I think this discussion started because we want to know who is interested in being a part of this. And it sounds like you're interested, Tim, and I know I'm interested, just at the bare minimal. Now, Mr. Linden, if you're afraid or worried that we might tip the scales, this is just a beginning phase. I'm happy to participate and have a vote. My concern is, are we going to be, is there going to be an incidence where we've got people who are on this committee who are leaning, and all of a sudden they're going to vote for something and say, this is what you guys are doing. That's the situation I don't want to get us in, where they tell us what we're going to do. I want to be a part of the decision-making process.
Well, I just want to know what we're getting, because ultimately, no matter what we think of these positions, we report back to constituents and to our folks. And so I realize this isn't a process I'm used to, but I want to know that when I say we're going to spend 130 million, that I can feel comfortable that three things: that Cove is getting what that community needs and expects, what BCAT is doing for our county that we haven't, dummied that project down, and then we've made it as big and bold as we can, and that Cundiff in my community gets what they need to, because again, selfishly being in real estate and being from that community, you want to take pride in those communities, and I just want to make sure that we're getting what our community needs. If we go in there and try and make it fit to the numbers, and I'm sure we're not absolutely trying to do that totally, but I just want to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck, and not somebody that realizes what they can come in here and do the project for, because they've got some momentum of having helped design this project. If any of that makes sense, because I just don't, and I don't want to reduce competition. And I've talked to David about this. I just want to make sure that we are not going into something where I'm voting, a participating voter, and we vote to approve this contractor, whoever it is, and we now design it. Now that I just don't understand that concept of approving the money and then getting the design. So, and I get that we've got a concept, but we don't have where we're at yet. So, I don't know. I really need to quit talking and let y'all decide, where you think we need to go.
To miss,
Question, is it,
go ahead.
is this gonna take longer process when you have going back and saying, we don't want that plank floor or whatever it may be, or triso or whatever, and the other one does? I mean, is it gonna go back and they're gonna say, oh, okay, we'll go back? Is this going back and forth with the committee? I mean, maybe I'm missing it. Is it gonna take longer for the project to be finished?
Using the PPEA process?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. And in fact, I think that's generally one of the purposes of using PPEA, is that you can speed
So
it
you're not
along.
gonna keep going back and forth with the contractor saying, okay, we wanted this. Okay, the committee said, okay, we want this. It's not gonna be a
I think that
delay.
part happens no matter which process we use. It sounds like what Mr. Greenway really wants is design, bid, build, where we have the full design
Right.
out first, and then we get bids on it, and then we build it, but that's not the
Yeah,
process
we haven't been used to this process.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
you're right.
That's
It's
the
just a
same
little different.
And again, not that I'm recommending this, I mean, you can get to a stage here and say, yeah, we're not comfortable with any of this, and we'd like to go back to that. I mean, you could certainly make that decision. Another decision you could make is say, look, all fine professional people here, and appreciate your input, but at the end of the day, we just want to be our own committee, but it would require your time to come in and do that, right? But I mean, that's something you could also decide to do, just be transparent, right?
I mean, I think all five of us would probably want to be a have some sort of input on that committee. If we were advisory members of that committee, could we rotate? I mean, if we were not permanent members and we're just advisory members, could it be that we were there on a rotating basis?
You could, I'm not sure you'd be satisfied with that, just because you wouldn't be hearing the same thing all the time. You see I'm
What
saying?
about
Like,
other infrastructure throughout the county? Have they used this process to build other buildings?
PPA process, my understanding is they, well, of course, we've done the bird renovation this way. It's we did the design build, which is more like a solicited proposal. I mean, so the way you start that thing is different than unsolicited, but in essence, it works the same. My understanding, the county did that with both their public safety building, if
So
I'm
maybe we
right,
should-
and the Greenbridge Center.
Maybe we should reach out to Mr. Kaywood and see about speaking with his staff and how that process went for them and how did they accomplish it? Because I think we're all kind of spinning wheels trying to figure out what's going on. And since they've been through those two processes recently, maybe we should reach out and just kind of see the ups, downs, and what worked and what they felt didn't.
Absolutely. In addition, we can have our, consultants that we desire to come in and speak to about as well, if that'd be helpful.
I think that'll be good. I mean, we're kind of all getting to a point here where it's 6 o'clock, and I don't think we've gotten any further than we were 30 minutes ago. So I think we probably ought to have some people in here that really know what they're talking about with this stuff. You think?
Yeah, and I have no issue. I just want to make sure you understand. I have no issue with those people. I do notice that Dr. Stegall's not on there. I'm not sure why that is, but
We'd like to participate. And the reason, different folks have different lenses, in terms of, hey, I'm going to look out for the, safety aspects of this, which is certainly what she brings to that, as well as the instructional piece. We want to look out for the instructional design. The principals, of course, have the eye in terms of what works already in terms of their daily operations. So all of those folks bring something to the table. And so,
well, I have no issue with any of those folks. I just, at the end of the day, we have to approve $130 million.
and we want you to be confident in that.
That's right. And that's where I'm at. And it's not, again, I trust every one of those folks. I just want to make sure that when I say yes, to that kind of money, that
Know what you're getting.
yeah, that's right. So
For the record, I have no issues with any of those folks either. I don't think any of us do.
No.
No, it's just about being informed.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, exactly.
All right.
I would make two recommendations. One, I would recommend that you all consider coming on in and looking at the detailed version of the proposal we've already gotten, and do the same thing for if we get competing proposals, certainly. And then secondly, we might want to consider going ahead and setting up maybe a special work session or something to that effect, and invite our consultants to come in. That's what they do for a living. And they can speak to their experience with shepherding these kind of projects.
But would it make sense to wait until you see what you've got in hand? Because I guess,
Yeah, but I was even suggesting that you do that just to feel more confident about the process.
I don't know that the process, I'm not sure. I don't think you can tell me anything more. I'm sure you can. I don't mean it like that. But what I'm saying is that would make me feel better about
Right.
this process, because I think I'm not sold on several of the processes that, not just PPE, but, like I said, we missed some things, and you can't get everything right, but even in the design build. And then I think, with Mike's project, design bid build, we had the rough
the
start,
change
all
orders
that
and-
stuff. So
Right.
I'm not saying anything's perfect, but I just, we're spending a lot of money here. We don't get second cracks at BCAT or these two elementary schools. And so that's all I'm saying. There's no disconnect with this. Everybody on that group is top notch, and I have no issues. I just want to make sure that, if we get 3 or 4 bids, maybe we should hear about all the bids and then, hear your recommendation. But by the same token, you're really telling me we're getting 3 or 4 totally separate concept bids for buildings. Because unless they're using RMM drawings, these are 3, 4, if we get that many, totally totally different concepts.
And that's what we experienced with the bird renovation. You know, everybody had a chance to come in and hear what we wanted, hear what the principal wanted. That they took advantage of coming in and doing that. They had the programming. Okay, like we need this number of classrooms for all these different purposes. We want, you know, in the case of the CT center, we want this number of, you know, bays for automotive, you know, all that. So everybody has the same programming. Now, what they came up with, I'm just using that by way of example, what they came up with in terms of, you know, the way the front facade might look, you know, the way they handled different things within the building. Of course, that's a renovation. I mean, there were definitely differences, and that's where the committee came in and said, we like this one best, you know, so.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know where to move from, but I guess, you know, if y'all want to.
I think the first step is to come on in and look at the plans.
We can come back.
Come back to
And
this.
correct me if I'm wrong, but we've kind of looked at the plans, right?
Remember there's the public portion and there's the proprietary. I'm not sure who's come in to see the proprietary yet.
Okay. I got
Maybe
you.
look at
Nobody.
that and then go back to it.
Okay,
And
yep,
if we
that
have to call a
sounds good.
special work session, we can
Yeah,
do that
that's
and
fine.
maybe get the
Yep.
consultants to come
Right.
in and we can get some
It'd be nice to have options, that's
detailed
for sure.
information.
Yeah.
Right now, we have one.
Which you said August 25th, right?
Yeah, that's what they're due. Doesn't mean you don't have time to
Right.
do what you want to do. I mean, you know, so.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Sorry about that.
We
No,
good
it's good.
to-
Again, you all feel confident about it.
Todd, can you go really quick through the next ones?
If it's the board's preference, we can stop right there. We've got copies of the proposal.
We're good with everything else. Let's go.
Oh, you got a nail appointment?
No,
I
don't.
thought that's what she said.
Oh, that is not good, Tim.
In terms of the CTE Center, we have on August 15th, that's the next sort of big date. There's a community open house out at the Green Ridge Center. That's for anybody interested in the rezoning application for the community to be able to come out. That's actually organized and run by Roanoke County. We will be present for that to answer questions for anybody who comes. And then September 16th is the Planning Commission meeting, and September 25th is the Board of Supervisors meeting. And of course, we all know now that the 25th, our proposals are due. Let's skip right to the pictures. That's what everybody wants to see. For the Northside High School artificial turf, this is this morning. They're actually out there sweeping in the sand and rubber. Prior to when it started raining, they will have had to stop, I imagine, because of the rain. But it is very nearly done. They should be done by this weekend. Looks great. So we're real happy with what they've done, and going to be playing on it in a week from Saturday, I believe.
I had that 5 or 6 years ago. That's nice.
Now we just need some new lights.
And it doesn't have two emblems on it, does it?
Gosh, Tim's on a roll tonight. I mean, the
insults
nail
everywhere.
comment, the lights, I mean,
It doesn't have two emblems on it.
no, I know, right?
On Williamsburg High School and the renovations, some additional asbestos was discovered that was not originally covered in the scope of work for, the abatement that we're already doing. We met about that on Monday, and it looks like right now, we're still waiting on the design and the pricing for that, but it looks like that's probably gonna be covered through the builder's contingency. Remember, there were 2 contingency funds, the owners, which we've used all of for this, the abatement we're currently doing, stadium lights, things like that. We used all of that. But there was still some contingency left on the builder's side. And so, based on that meeting and pending the pricing, we're hoping that all of that's going to be covered and won't require any additional money from the board. The gym
And our
floor-
contingency was used by asbestos.
Well, part of it was used for the lights, part of it was used for things
Right.
done in the cafeteria, and then the rest of it was used for, and there were some other smaller things here and there, and then the rest
Yeah.
of it was used for the abatement that's already,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
already going on.
Just want to make sure we clarify that. Sure.
The
The
1.5
gym floor,
million.
They're putting the bleachers back in tomorrow, at least they're scheduled to do that,
building
and, we talk to him almost daily. He still says he's on track to be done before the end of August, so we feel good.
Even though they work
Feel good
about one
that.
day a month.
Mr. Greenway had actually asked us to look into retracting goals. The board in the gym there, Bert, in the main gym, all the other schools had goals that would retract up into the ceiling. Bird did not have that. We went and made some modifications to the existing ones, put in some motors and things, got the current goals to retract, but what you're left with, and this isn't a great picture of it, but you get an idea up here. This is kind of what you're left with. You still have the same structure we had in the, 60s or 70s, whenever the building was constructed. The strap, actually, this is it right here. Because of the way this works, the strap has to be in the front, where it's a little bit of an issue in terms of it interfering with basketball. They have a little retractor that can kind of pull it out of the way and not make that too much of an issue, but it doesn't look good. And it certainly doesn't look modern relative to, these are at Glenver High School, and I believe these were put in as part of the renovation process there. Almost identical to what Cave Spring High School has. Theirs are painted black. So when Mr. Greenway asked about this, and we talked about really needing to replace the structure, we needed to look into pricing for that, and that's about $35,000 to install those at William High.
Why didn't they do it to start with?
Well, that's a great question. As we kind of already alluded to, you don't hit every little thing. When you do a project of that size, I do think that that's something that somebody who's very detail-oriented probably could have gone into the gym and said, hey, we need to replace this, we need to replace this, we need to replace this. Now, I also think that there were lots of things originally included in the scope that then had to be eliminated from the scope due to the budget. So having not been a part of that process myself, I can't tell you whether they were missed or whether they were cut.
Yeah, this
But
was-
regardless.
This
yeah,
was before Mr. Cagle.
right.
Does it affect volleyball?
That's why you originally asked me to
Before
look
they
at
could be
it.
moved, I mean, you've got the goal back there.
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't be moved at all.
It's sightline, right? I mean, it affects maybe sight lines, but it's actually
Can I see
beyond the
that
end
again?
lines of the volleyball court.
Can I see that again, Chuck?
The first one,
Yours are tracked.
Yeah.
this one,
No,
In the new gym, yeah,
the
absolutely.
next one.
Do mine.
the one at Glenver.
I would think so.
Yeah. Okay, they go back. You don't have anything sticking out.
That's right. And these are back beyond the volleyball court, so they don't actually interfere with volleyball. They don't look good because they hang down right just outside the out of bounds area of volleyball, but they don't actually interfere because they're outside the court, if that was the question.
Anybody got any issues with that?
Well,
Oh, my goodness. So I have to ask Mr. Greenway question. What other schools have the retractable goals at this point?
Glenver and Cave Spring for sure. Well, everybody has
Everybody
retractable
has
goals, except
The
for.
modern retractable goals.
Well, okay, and thank you for clarifying, because that's, I kind of think where we went wrong in installing the retraction kits for the ones we have. We thought we just wanted them to retract, but what we actually wanted was a more modern, style goal. And we'll say that those rims and backboards and all that stuff, that they don't look very good. They're, I haven't gone over there and
Well,
looked
they're
at them after your request.
50-some years
Even though
old.
they retract now, they don't look good.
what, the back one?
But we believe all
Absolutely.
other schools have
Well, we
them.
probably
Have the modern
Yes,
version?
yeah.
We believe or we
Yeah.
know?
Well, I did not go and take pictures at Cave Spring. I took
Okay.
pictures at
Whatever
Glenver, and I
that
took
is,
pictures at, sorry,
That's all
at
he
Hidden
wants, what
Valley. I took
everybody else
pictures at
has.
Glenver and Cave Spring. And they both definitely have, identical ones there. Now, Hidden Valley hadn't been renovated, so those are probably, 20 years old. I don't know what those look like.
Well, I'm good with Tim's if we can get mine done too then.
I'm just looking over at
Right.
Susan, wondering how bad she's sweating about this money that we're about ready to.
How much was
Here she
that
comes.
asbestos remediation?
Thanks. You're gonna bring that back up, huh?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well,
For fear of getting kicked out of this room, you only have $12,300 in minor capital. And that is for
What will
projects that
what will
were,
our surplus be for July?
I have no idea. We have to book all of our journal
Sure,
entries yet.
but we've got it coming.
Now's probably not the time.
Yeah, that's right.
How much did we spend
But we
on
also
the-
have
Yes.
a tight budget for next year too.
Yeah.
How much did we spend on the retractable?
Well, we spent about $15,000, but if you notice on the on the photographs here. What we installed is pretty much exactly, it's this kit here and this motor here. And that would be used on the new structure, so we didn't waste all of that money if you choose to replace it. We wasted some on labor, but the motors, the strap is actually a safety. It keeps the goal from slamming down if the motor were to fail. We'll be able to use that kit on the new goals, so it won't, it
Are y'all
won't
really
go
gonna
to
make
waste.
me explain how we should get these goals?
Oh, my goodness. Susan, how much money do we have left? Say it out loud.
12,500.
Tim, can you do the math on that?
Yes, I can. That's a
Okay.
down payment,
Can you write a check for the difference?
if I need to. I
Why-
mean,
why
I can't
don't-
believe we spend $23 million on a school, and so the retract, because they can't make them work behind. So you got the basket like this, right? The basket sits out here. The retractable piece sits out here. So if you have one hit the rim and go up, it hits a cord.
Is there, what savings are we gonna have? You said we could save the motor and things. Is it still 35?
The only way we have backboards.
That
is
included
ride them
reusing the
from
motors.
RCCC.
Oh, we do the, okay.
Is minor capital our only option? Do we have other?
I mean, at this point, I mean, you have operating, minor capital, or CMP. And I know that we allocated CMP to projects all on the bat. Mr. Kegel was able to reallocate a couple of the CMP projects out, but that really needs to be for, things that are breaking in the system so that we can keep them going. HVAC is out at some places, and making sure that we allocate that to where it needs to go for capital maintenance, because that's what that is for. This is not a capital maintenance project, so I would not think we can dip into that. It just wouldn't make sense.
Y'all are really gonna
It's
make me
really
start
minor capital
lobbying,
or
aren't
operating
you?
funds.
There's got to be somebody who can donate them to. Greenwood?
So we build Glenver, right? Do you think we had any question about putting in new, everything all the way around in there with retractable? We built Cave Spring, and I admit it should be this way. Did we have any issues with putting in retractable goals in there so that they didn't have them down in the middle of the, or not in the middle, but at the ends of the volleyball?
Can I,
We built a competition gym at Northside, right? Do you think those are the newest and the best and the retractable? And we built Hidden Valley 20 years ago. So I really wasn't wanting to go there, but I mean, come on.
That's not where
Come
volleyball
on.
plays.
We saved a ton of money doing the design build, right? So
Do we say that if we agree that we would do it, do we wait till the money comes in? And say, we're gonna appropriate it when we get the extra funding, once the budget, if it ever gets approved? Right?
I'm sorry, I was whispering to Mr. Kegels. We do have an opportunity right now. We have, I think, about $29,000 in one of our ESSER funds that we have set aside for preventative maintenance. His staff was going to use it next year. So next year being, okay, I'm in FY '23, so next year is the current year in my world right now. If they don't need it for next year, we can use some spending out of the 2023 year to fund in the grant if it qualifies. There is some HVAC that looks like it might qualify, and if that qualifies, we can put that and fund that, which would free up some of your money out of current year operations, which then could go back into minor capital, possibly. That might be, but that's a stretch. But at the end of the day, if we're not gonna be done with William Byrd until next year, and this can wait until next year, we will bring in our surplus to you in December to get approved by yourself and then.
how about if I loan you the money? How about if I loan the money to Roanoke County Public Schools and you pay me back when you get the money? I mean, my Lord, are we really discussing this? Come on, guys.
Well, we had 29, you said we had 29 ESSER funds and 12
It just shouldn't be this hard for Vinton.
Is that, well, I'm just trying
No,
to figure out the
I'm with you,
money.
I'm with you.
I'm not with.
Yeah, I'm
trying
talking
to see
about
what-
just the whole deal.
It would be
Is there
more
a
than
place
enough.
that, Barbie,
It would be more than enough with those two that you just said.
be more than,
More than enough to pay for the goals, the 29 and the 12.
it'd be more than enough to go ahead
Yes,
and
sir.
pay for those two.
Yes.
And we have zero money of contingency.
On our side of the contingency, yes,
It's
it was
12,000.
all used for
That's
the abatement.
12,000.
It does sound like this, I'm just throwing this out there, it does sound like this is solvable if the goal would be to have this done either by the time the project's finished, which would be like next spring. Now, if we're talking for next basketball season, which is probably what you prefer.
Well, just take those cords down. I mean, just leave them where they can't retract. My gosh, this is ridiculous. Absolutely freaking ridiculous.
The cords
We
won't be in
spent
the way.
$23 million on a school, and we can't provide basketball goals.
Well, they
Yeah.
missed it.
The cords won't be.
I mean.
I
they
agree.
did.
Well, this is
They
why I
did.
have a problem with this
They did.
PPE project. We don't know what's in it. We're going to approve something that's going to be, well, this one's totally separate from that one because we don't know what that design is. This one's different than those. I can't even believe I'm discussing this about these goals. I mean, just blows my mind. But anyway, whatever we need to do, if we need to wait a year, take those cords down. Just leave them, just leave those goals sitting there. I mean, it's.
Well, we could do that. Our current plan, there's an additional piece that you can get that basically spring loads those cords and draws them up when they're not under tension so that they would be out of the way. That's only about $1,500.
Well, we ain't got that kind of money. So
Well,
I'm good with whatever. I'm good with whatever.
But it-
I mean,
you
I'll
want
tell
us
you
to
what,
take 'em
let's
down, we'll
rob
take 'em
RCCC again, so we'll have basketball goals. I mean, I'm telling you, folks, if you think it's, whatever. Yeah, I mean, whatever. It doesn't matter. Whatever y'all decide, I'm good with.
Well,
I mean, we can go play down at Herman
I
L.
thought
Horn.
we-
We got new nets over there. We can play over there for a while.
we got, we do, I mean, we don't, the unbudgeted unknown stuff that we don't have any clue, but we know that we probably are gonna, we pretty much we're gonna get more money, right? Are we gonna be able to replenish anything that we would use at this point?
I can't make a comment to that because I brought a very aggressive conservative budget in hopes that the governor would do more. I'm still hoping in December he will, but we can't use the money outside of what we've already laid out in our structures until we get more money. Does that make sense? Like, we can't say we're gonna get more money, so we're gonna go ahead and purchase X.
You're talking
And-
about out of operating funds?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some news coverage the past week that, maybe the governor and the Senate is hopefully gonna work out something, so we might know something in the next few weeks. In terms of hedging our bets on the operating
It's
funds.
fine, whatever. It is. I
It's
mean,
up to you guys, we're just telling you
Yeah.
what's available in our
Can I
checking
just
account.
loan us the 22.5 and y'all pay me back when we get our surplus? Can I loan Roanoke County Schools that money to get it done now?
You might have to call our attorney
You
on
know,
that
you
one.
know the process?
I don't know.
wanted to donate some money,
Oh, my God.
and it went through a process. They had to accept the money. The board of supervisors had to accept the money before they could even take it. I couldn't even write it to the rescue squad. I mean,
So
it's a
let me
process.
just get straight. So how much are we short based off the, if we were to use the 12, which comes out of contingency, right? That's how much we have left for the build.
Well,
We have, yeah, about 12.5.
So around 22
Yeah.
is what we're short. So your desire would be to go ahead and replace these goals.
Absolutely.
ASAP.
Well, I mean, because it's a brand-new gym.
So we would have to take the money from,
So what I can do is we can see if we can put FY '23, some HVAC that we've purchased in operating funds that qualify for the grant. We could free up 22,000 out of the operating budget and pay for part of it out of operating and part of it out of minor capital.
And get it done, do it now.
And do it
let's
now.
do it.
but do we want to do this now or do we need to take this to the next meeting?
And we would
Because we
replenish it.
generally don't
Yeah, we can wait.
No, I mean,
We're not gonna be done with 6:30 for a couple of meetings. So we can bring this back to you as an action item at the next board meeting, with our recommendation, and that will allow my staff to go back and look and
Well-
verify that my recommendation is feasible and doable.
Okay, yeah, I think it's a good idea, and to be fair to Tim, we bring it up in the next meeting, and we'll vote on it, one way or the other.
Thank you.
I'll bring you something at the next board meeting.
And is it something that could wait, though, Tim? I mean, you really feel like this can't wait
Well,
till,
no,
no, till
absolutely.
it's done?
Absolutely, you can wait. Just take those cords down and we'll leave the old nets and goals.
I don't know,
up
I don't
there.
know what these things look like,
Yeah,
but I just,
leave them.
because it's
fine.
not, when do you start play?
I'm telling you what, the struggle for Vinton is real. If you think it's not, I'm good
Well,
with it.
let's
I'm
just
good
put,
with
let's
it.
put it on the agenda as an action
Yeah.
item. You can come back with us and let us know.
Because they're playing basketball when?
November.
November, yeah.
November? And you would need to order it before then, that's all I'm
Well, they're
asking.
Yeah, what's
Actually,
what's the lead time on
That's what I'm
getting them
asking.
built?
Well, that's a good question. You know, we need bids on this, and there aren't very many people who do this kind of work, so we got one, is how we established that initial budget. We've got another one scheduled, was supposed to be sometime this week. I haven't heard if we got the second one. We'd still need to get the third one, and then, you know, if we were able to do all that right now and get it ordered, it would be a struggle to get them in before basketball season, probably during basketball season at some point, but, you know, that's not very far out when you consider scheduling contractors and getting all the parts in to get them by basketball season this year. Plus, you have volleyball in the gym, so you can't take the gym out of service, you know, to install those, and they butt right up against each other in terms of volleyball and basketball. So it would be very difficult to get them in before basketball season. Probably get somebody to work on the weekend, that kind of thing, but no guarantees.
Well, I'd say just leave it. We gotta,
Well, I mean, wait a minute. I mean, I think you just go ahead and put it on the agenda. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
Well, they'll bring us back hopefully you'll have your 3 bids, and
And you'll
maybe
see.
we'll have one come
At
in
least 2.
lower, and then Susan will have options for money, and we'll.
all right.
And that can come out of ESSER funding? I mean, you think that,
This will not come out of ESSER funding.
oh, because that's
no.
what, I thought that's what you
What
had
we can
suggested
do is
earlier.
look in the operating fund and move operating fund purchases that qualify for the ESSER, that are HVAC prevention specific purposes.
And will that need to go to the Board of Supervisors because you're moving buckets around?
We won't be moving buckets.
You're not
around.
moving buckets?
Because
Okay.
it's the grant versus the other, so we don't need to re-appropriate it. You've
Okay.
already approved to spend money out of the grants for those purposes,
Okay,
but simultaneously, they're also spending money out of operating for those purposes, so we can
Right.
okay.
do the accounting thing in terms of work, how it's recorded. It's, I was okay to do that, yeah.
If you could present something, that would be helpful.
We'll just put that on the agenda for our next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, just moving as quickly as possible. Cafeteria and main office there are both substantially complete. There's always a few punch list items, but they're complete, they're in use. Also the lobby, Mr. Greenway, I know you were making sure that was ready for the start of school. It's ready now. Glenver, you guys, you know, paid for the courtyard there last year. This is what it looks like now. They did a real nice job. There was a little issue with the drain cover that they're supposed to be, it's kind of sitting right back there, that they've got ironed out this week, but generally it's done. It looks really good. If you just remember, sort of, this isn't where we started, but it's an early progress picture when some of that equipment had been, so you can see there's a huge difference between, you know, where we started and where we ended up.
Ken, I'm a little disappointed you weren't on that train in this morning's picture.
Forgot about that one.
I don't think it was there when you were ready to do your thing, but you can go out there now anytime, so. The Vinton bus lot is, let's see, we've already, so we published the notice of intent to award the contract. We have to publish that first, then you have 10 days, and then after those 10 days, you can actually award the contract. So we got our bids in, we've published the notice of intent, and it's ready to be done. As soon as we've signed the contract, what we wrote in the contract is that it should be completed by October 31st. We hope to get it much sooner than that, but that's kind of our target, is to have it done by.
And Todd, we're not gonna have to move, we've kind of determined we don't have to move that lot now, right?
It was our desire to move the lot, but then in terms of working with Vinton and Roanoke County and their desire to have us to move the lot, trying to find a suitable location and pricing, none of that
worked
you know,
out.
none of that could be coordinated. So they weren't willing to, you know, pay as much as it was gonna take for us to be able to move the lot. We were willing to take what we were spending in paving and put that into a new site, but the rest of that wasn't able to be
That's my
worked out.
reason for the question. I just hate to see us spend that kind of money and then somebody say, well, we've got to move to a new site.
Yeah, and we worked closely with Roanoke County and Benton on that. Actually, you know, had some meetings on site with them, and in the end, it just couldn't be worked out. I think all parties agreed the best option was just to go ahead and repave it.
Okay.
The playgrounds, just scheduling, Mr. Greenway, I know you were worried about Herman L. Horn. They're scheduled for August 14th. Back Creek is then scheduled on the 24th. Equipment's on order for Mount Pleasant and Oak Grove, supposed to be delivered on August the 7th, and then they'll be scheduled for installation once the equipment is on site. The Glen Cove drain line, you know, kind of that's what it looked like there in the small pictures, and then this is what it looks like today. They've, you know, filled in all the floor, done all the tile, reconnected most of the equipment. They're still working on some plumbing stuff over there, but it'll be ready to go for the beginning of school. Glenver Elementary School is now connected to public water. We did have a little issue with the water line over there. We put it on public water. The pressure was too high, blew apart the existing pipe. We had to run a new pipe, but it's all good now, and it's they're on public water off of the well water, so we're very happy with that. Sale of Pogue Farm, the contract is in the Realtor's hands, and he said he would have that signed and back to us on Monday, and then we'll be ready to start that whole process. And just three that I don't think we've discussed before. I know Mr. Hudson was out at Fort Lewis and had become aware of this. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were all aware of this. At Cundiff, Fort Lewis, and Glen Cove, they're all getting essentially complete HVAC replacements, at least the inside units, the part of the system that's inside the building. So that's 42 heat pumps at Cundiff, 36 at Fort Lewis, and 33 down at Glen Cove, and they're in various stages of completion. The one that's sort of critical right now is this one at Fort Lewis. They have to shut the air conditioning down to the whole building when they go to hook these units up because they're all connected together. And so that'll be done actually tomorrow, and 12 of the 36 will then be replaced, should be ready to go by Monday. And then the remainder of those, the other 24, will have to be scheduled like during school breaks, you know, when we're out for probably Christmas break really at this point before we have an extended break. Cundiff, there was an issue. They shipped us the wrong units, 42 heat pumps sitting down at the warehouse that are incorrect. So they had to be reordered. They'll be here or be shipped on August the 17th, and then installation will be scheduled as soon as they're here. And then at Glen Cove, most of those are done. 33 have been replaced, and we've got about 5 still to go that'll have to be done during the breaks.
Are these, how about the air handlers on the inside, right?
These are these are all inside the building. These are the heat pump part inside. The air
Inside,
handler
the heat
separate.
pump part,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, the air handler is actually built into
Right.
these, so that's all, you're basically getting a whole new HVAC system
The units together.
in those buildings, yeah.
And we, I mean, it's that critical, I guess, for Cove and Cundiff, that we're getting ready to.
Well, our hope is that those will be
They
reused,
can use those,
but
okay.
these units were very old, and we actually had one on fire down here at Glen Cove last year, so, yeah, they were in desperate need of replacement.
Okay.
And these were
They'll be
ESSER
able to-
projects that were approved, a couple of years ago.
They can be used, and that's not a part of the scope of the rebuild.
Yeah, we hope that they're gonna reuse these units when they do the rebuild to save us money from having to replace and be able to use for other things at those schools. But if they don't, these same units can be used at other schools. So we'll just pull them out and replace older units,
Okay.
around the county.
Will we be good by the time kids come back?
At Fort Lewis?
Well, just at all three. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out if we're gonna expect phone calls and be able to give answers to
We
parents.
shouldn't. Cundiff and Cove don't have any current work going on, so they're still, running their old stuff. I mean, assuming that old stuff doesn't fail. I mean, it does. That's why they're being replaced. But right now, everything's working to the best of our knowledge. Fort Lewis is the only one that has current work going on, and these are all being installed by a contractor. Our guys aren't doing this. And it's just those 12 that they're gonna be able to get to before school starts, and they're supposed to be up and running on Monday.
But the other ones are still operating. The ones you're not doing right now are still operating.
all of them except the 12 that they're replacing,
Right,
because
that's
those
what I'm
had to be
saying.
pulled out while they're installing the new ones, yeah.
Right, okay, great.
That's all I have.
With that, I think everybody would like the meeting to be adjourned.
Oh, wait, we were going to talk about,
Hold on, Chuck.
yeah.
Athletic.
So I'll just introduce the topic. Every year, I think we have this discussion when we start the school year about athletics and what we do for our athletics, and it came up again. And so I called Rhonda the other day, and I just asked some questions just for some clarity, to look at our past history and what we've done in terms of supplying our, athletic departments with money and what that goes towards and how we've increased that year to year. So with that being said, I'll just let Rhonda go ahead and explain some things.
Yeah, so in 21-22, our allotments for the high school is 7,700. Since then, we have, in 2022-23, we increased it to 25,528, which was quite a good jump. And then in this current school year, we jumped it up a little bit more to where we landed at $30,028 for high schools. So that's a $23,000 increase up to from 21 to current. So that's given them some little bit extra money to work with. And then middle schools, we went from 7,356 up to 9,128. Part of the reason we brought to the board the need for the increase was because transportation costs went up, official cost went up, everything that, all costs have gone up, right? So they go up for athletics as well. And some of our schools were struggling, not getting enough revenue to pay the bills. So this was a cushion for them to help them to do that. So they have been very appreciative of that, and I think it has been helpful. And then what we also looked at was, the coaches. So the board asked HR to look into the coaching positions in the spring of 22, and we did that, and we noticed there were a couple sports that needed additional coaches, but we never went back and looked at winter and fall. So after talking to all the athletic directors, they were all 5 in agreement that we needed to consider when we look at fall, that we need to add 1 football coach and we need to add 1 volleyball coach assistant. And the only other additional need they thought that we needed for fall and winter was that our cross-country, some of our teams, the middle school team comes up and there's not a middle school team, so they run with the high school team, so there's not a coaching stipend for the middle school team. So what they would like to see is if there's 15 middle school kids that pull up to run cross-country with the high school, that we add an additional stipend for that, because the kids are running different routes, so it creates a different supervision issue. And I think they enjoy having the kids participate with them, so it would be helpful for that. So what they're asking for is those 3 positions. And so a recommendation for next year's budget, since we're already through this budget cycle, would be to get the fall and winter up to matching with what we did in the spring, which would be to add the additional football coach, add the volleyball coach, add the extra cross-country position for the middle school kids. That would be a max total of $41,750. And that's considering all 5 schools would need all 5 positions. And then another recommendation we would make is Hidden Valley and Cave Spring have to pay to travel to all of their home games at Bogle, and that was approximately $3,000. This past year, we were able to give them $750 of that $3,000 that they pay out every year. So the request would be moving forward to give them a little bit more money to help, close that deficit. And then Susan and I worked with athletic directors, and we're working on getting them onto a consistent budgeting system, because right now it's impossible to see what's happening in the athletic world. And so we're going to work with them in the next year to get them all on the same budgeting system so we can see everything more clearly. And then after that, once we can start to see the money better, then of course, look to see if there's a need for additional money to support athletics. When we support athletics, we do a lot of things. One, it reduces the fundraising that the students have to do. It helps, right now, the coaches in some of the sports are having to pay for fees to go play in tournaments. And so only, a few sports make money, so they have to take that money and distribute it across all sports that are not making money. So we're paying for transportation officials for sports that aren't making money. So the revenue, if you don't have a good football season, you're going to struggle to pay your bills. So that's what we're seeing in some schools, that they really are struggling to meet the mark. So that's why we're giving them a little bit more cushion.
And if I may, I think what happens is when they start out the year, they're given a certain amount of money, but right off the bat, their operating costs, it's just barely covering those operating costs by the time you pay for transportation, which we raised the hourly wage, security, police, safety, those rates, what did you say, Brent? They went up to like $70 an hour.
Yeah.
That's gone up.
They have.
Officials have gone
Yes.
up. So what we're providing isn't meeting the basic necessities for operating costs. And in particular, Hidden Valley High School and Cave Spring High School, because they have to travel to Bogle just to get to one of those games alone, like their whole budget would be shot just with those 6 or 7, how many home games they have, because they have to use up that money in safety, for safety measures, for crossing guards, for school buses, for everything else.
What is this front sheet?
That is what we have, what you as a board you have increased their allotments. This is what the school division gives them for their athletic funding. We did a little bit as best we could. It cost about $84,000 per school, high school, to run their athletic program. That's what we're providing from the school division. Everything else is their revenue or their fundraising.
Yeah, so can you say that again? So
Yeah.
this is really important. And I asked, I think I was talking to somebody today, and I said, well, our neighboring counties, how much are they spending? How much are they giving, their boards giving to, let's say, Patrick Henry? I mean, it's like $235,000 they're giving to their school, to that one school, for their operating budget just to run athletics. And you're guessing it's what, $85,000 is what it costs to run, and we're giving $30,000. And so our programs, what's ended up happening is the kids have got to fundraise. So I'm not opposed to fundraising. You want extra things, you got to fundraise. But tournaments and everything else, but our athletic directors and our principals are struggling because they don't have the proper money to start athletic programs, just to get them going. And so I'd like to, as a board, continue to address this. As costs have gone up, everything continues to go up, transportation costs, we've got to be able to match that and at least make it at the bare minimum so they can operate. So did you have a comment on that, Susan?
Well, I'm not sure with the numbers that you're referencing, and I can't remember the amount that Roanoke City's given. I don't know if they're including the stipends in that. So this is the only amount outside of stipends. That would be my only, I don't want us to, I don't know if we're talking.
Well, we're not,
apples
and they've got different funding and everything else,
Right.
different revenue streams than we do, so we're not obviously comparing apples to apples. But what we do know is you're projecting that it costs each school how much?
You said, what about 85,000?
About 85,000,
That's the real big point here.
Yeah.
We're providing less than half of that. And that's what they need.
And we,
Well, can I, one thing,
let me
Mr.
pull
Chairman?
one thing up.
I guess my understanding is when they went to teams go to state championships, it was like like girls and boys, just like $10,000 just to get there. And I know we incurred $20,000 and the other schools did too, to get the transportation there. And so then they asked me about a high jump pad and I don't know if everybody has one, can you put a pencil to that sometime and see who has high jump pads? I was requested about that. Could you look and see?
It's.
Pit, yeah, pit pad.
Everybody has it. All high schools have the high
Well, what's wrong with ours?
Well, I don't know. You came and asked me about that.
Well, I just don't, I wanna
They're-
make
they're
sure
all
that if we
fake.
need
They
one,
don't like the
if
way
we
they
need
look.
one, I wanna make sure, and I'll meet you out there, whatever we need to do.
I'll give you a
I'm happy to
basketball
look at
goal.
athletic equipment, but I don't think that's really the operations
Donate
department.
the old goal.
Do what, sir?
I said, I'm happy to look at athletic equipment, but that's not typically been something that's handled through operations to my knowledge.
Well, how,
what it is.
yeah, if everybody's got something, I'd like to know if we got a deficiency there, why, requested for it,
Sure.
why would we even request it?
Well, I'll be happy to go out and take some pictures for you. And,
I'll tell you this, Mike, if we have it, if we all have it, you should have it.
Well, I just wanna see, so, hey, if you will, thank you.
Sure, photographs.
Yes, sir.
If you got a board, we ought to have it.